Chief Julius Okoro, a wealthy businessman, lived in Banana Island, Lagos, with his wife, Neoma, and their 19-year-old daughter, Amora. Their mansion was a symbol of their opulence, with lavish parties and high society guests. But beneath the surface, darkness lurked. Chief Okoro's eyes had been on Amora for a while, and one fateful night, he crossed the line, raping his own daughter. When Neoma discovered the truth, she was devastated. She confronted Chief Okoro, who denied the allegations and accused her of being jealous. But Neoma knew the truth, and she was determined to protect her daughter. As the days passed, tensions in the household escalated. Chief Okoro became increasingly controlling and possessive, while Neoma tried to find a way to escape the toxic situation. But before she could act, Chief Okoro silenced her permanently, killing her in cold blood. Amora was left alone and vulnerable, at the mercy of her father's twisted desires. With Neoma out of the way, Chief Okoro set his sights on Amora, determined to marry her. He showered her with gifts and attention, trying to manipulate her into accepting his proposal. But Amora was horrified, and her world was shattered. She felt trapped and alone, with no one to turn to. As the days passed, she became increasingly desperate, searching for a way to escape her father's clutches. One day, Amora discovered a dark secret about her father's past, a secret that could destroy his reputation and set her free. But as she contemplated using this information to her advantage, she realized that it would come at a great cost. Would Amora find a way to escape her father's clutches, or would she become a victim of his shameless desires? The fate of Banana Island's darkest secret hangs in the balance. As the story unfolds, Amora's desperation grows, and she is forced to make impossible choices. Will she find a way to break free from her father's grasp, or will she become trapped forever? The story takes a dark and twisted turn, exploring themes of incest, abuse of power, and the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. The consequences of Chief Okoro's actions will be severe, and the impact on Amora's life will be devastating. Amora struggled to come to terms with her father's proposal. She began to notice strange occurrences around the mansion. Doors would slam shut on their own, and she would hear whispers in the night. She couldn't shake the feeling that her mother's spirit was trying to communicate with her. One night, Amora decided to investigate further. She snuck out of her room and made her way to the attic, where her mother used to keep old family heirlooms. As she rummaged through the trunks, she stumbled upon an old diary belonging to her mother. As she flipped through the pages, Amora discovered a shocking truth. Her father's wealth and power weren't just due to his business dealings. He had made a pact with a dark and malevolent force, trading his soul for success. Amora realized that her father's actions were not just driven by lust and greed, but also by a desire to appease this dark force. She knew that she had to get out of the mansion, but she also knew that she couldn't do it alone. With newfound determination, Amora began to formulate a plan. She would gather evidence of her father's wrongdoing and expose him to the world. But as she delved deeper into her investigation, she realized that her father's secrets were more sinister than she had ever imagined. The story takes a dark and supernatural turn, exploring themes of occultism, corruption, and the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Amora's quest for justice will put her in grave danger, but she is determined to see it through. The air crackled with an unnatural energy as Chief Okoro took a step closer, his imposing frame blocking the only exit. The dim candlelight flickered wildly, casting jagged shadows on the walls. Amora's heart pounded, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. "You don't understand, child," he murmured, his voice thick with something ancient, something beyond him. This power is bigger than you or me. It is the way of our ancestors, the way of those who have ruled for centuries. Amora clenched her fists. You sold your soul for wealth and power, and now you want to offer me as payment. Her father smirked. A small price to pay for immortality. The mansion groaned around them, the very walls seeming to pulse as if alive. Amora felt something stir beneath the floorboards, a presence awakening. The dark force her father had bound himself to, it was hungry. She had to act fast. Without hesitation, she flung a vial of salt from her pocket, a protective measure she had prepared after reading her mother's diary. The granules scattered in a circle around her, disrupting the dark energy. Chief Okoro recoiled, his face twisting in fury. You think you can stop what has already begun? He sneered. Amora reached into her coat and pulled out one of his own journals. I know your secret now, she said. The society, their sacrifices, their rituals, I have proof. If I don't make it out, others will know. The world will know. Her father's expression darkened. He hadn't expected her to be this prepared. But he was still the predator, and she was still the prey. Brave words, he mused, stepping closer. But bravery alone won't save you. Then, with an inhuman speed, he lunged. Amora barely dodged the attack, her instinct screaming at her to move. She stumbled backward, knocking over a candelabrum. Flames licked at the edges of the rug, smoke curling toward the ceiling. She didn't wait to see what would happen next. She bolted. Through the hallway, down the grand staircase, past the portraits of her ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. Behind her, Chief Okoro's footsteps thundered, relentless. Amora. His voice echoed, distorted, as if something else spoke through him. She turned a corner sharply and nearly collided with Elias. His eyes widened at her terror-stricken face. Run, she gasped. But before he could react, Chief Okoro appeared at the top of the stairs, his body seeming larger, his presence oppressive. This is your final warning, daughter. His voice was layered, a chorus of voices speaking as one. Elias grabbed Amora's hand. This way. They sprinted through the side corridor, heading toward the stables. The moment they burst outside, the wind howled violently, the trees bending unnaturally. The air was thick with something unseen, something malevolent. Horses are ready, Elias panted. But before they could mount, the ground trembled. A shadowy figure began to rise from the earth behind them, a twisted, eldritch entity with glowing eyes and elongated limbs. The Dark God. Amora's breath hitched. We have to go, Elias shouted. Amora looked back at the mansion, her childhood home now a prison of nightmares. Inside, she could hear her father's chanting, the language of the ancients spilling from his lips. She turned to Elias, determination burning in her chest. Not yet. He looked at her like she was insane. What? I need to end this. Before he could stop her, she turned and ran back toward the mansion. The heat from the growing fire seared Amora's skin as she pushed forward. The moment she stepped inside, the Ethicon, pressing against her like unseen hands trying to suffocate her. Her father stood in the center of the grand hall, arms outstretched, the dark deity fully formed behind him. Its grotesque, shifting form filled the room, eyes upon eyes watching her. You could have been a goddess, her father lamented, his voice almost sad. I'd rather be free, Amora spat. She reached into her coat, this time pulling out her mother's diary and an old pendant she had found in the hidden room. The pendant was carved with protection runes, her mother's last act of defiance against the dark forces. Amora threw the pendant toward the entity. The effect was instant. The god shrieked, its form distorting violently. The walls cracked, the chandelier above shattering into pieces. Her father screamed, clutching his head as if something was being ripped from him. No, he bellowed. The mansion shook violently. The dark energy that had infested it for decades was unraveling. Amora ran. She barely made it out before the entire structure collapsed in on itself, consumed by fire and shadow. Elias was waiting for her, his face pale, his hands shaking. Is it over? Amora looked back at the ruins. Her father was gone. The dark force was gone. But she knew, evil never truly dies. She turned to Elias, gripping the journal tight. For now, she said. But there are others like him. And I'm going to find them. The night sky stretched above them, vast and endless. And so, the hunt began.